So a bit more on the last item that we talked about. Why does an organization go for third-party assurance? It allows to build trust through transparency. So it demonstrates that any carbon claims can meet the relevant standards. It allows organizations to differentiate with credibility as it instills trust in the outputs, and it signals that a robust methodology has been followed. It can support accurate decision making. So assurance demonstrates that the reliable data, credible data has been used. So then the organizations can use this to inform their internal strategies, identify any hotspots, and educate and inform supply chain engagement. And then finally, we all know that regulatory pressure is on the rising. We have multiple new legislation that is coming up in both the UK and Europe. So third-party assurance can help organizations stay ahead of upcoming standard and reduce risk of non-compliance with regards to regulations. Can you move us on to the next one, please? Cool. So we talked about the different types of assurance, and here's a bit more detail on some of these terms that we're using. So a validation, it assesses the credibility of future projections. A verification is the check of the truth of historical data. This piece of work can be done to either limited or a reasonable level of assurance. And then we have the model assurance that we have done for Cool Farm. So the Carbon Trust Model Assurance is a mixed engagement. And what we mean by that is that it includes aspects both of verification and validation. So next slide, please. So on to the main topic of what this actually means for Cool Farm platform users. So the Cool Farm platform assurance covers a significant portion of what is required to achieve a verified product carbon footprint. So when the Carbon Trust does a product carbon footprint verification, we look into four separate aspects. So one is the underlying primary data and the evidence, background data, so the data that has been used in your calculation but is secondary data, the calculation engine and the methodologies, and also the footprint outputs and any associated documentation. In the Cool Farm platform assurance, we focused in the background, what was assured is the background data, the calculation engine and methodologies, as well as the presentation of the results. So what this means is that the Cool Farm platform active assurance gives you confidence that these particular aspects of the footprint are in line with the relevant GHG accounting standards, which can make it then easier for you to achieve product carbon footprint verification for your own footprints, as you can already see that some of these aspects have already been pre-reviewed and pre-assured. Another thing to note for this one is that, as you can see, we have 4 steps and only some of them are included. 2 and the presentation of results have been included in the assurance. And this is because any carbon footprint has to be is reliant on your data as well. So your input, your primary data. So that means that the model outputs of the Cool Farm platform do not constitute an already verified carbon footprint. Additional work has to be done for you to be able to achieve that. Can you move us to the next one, please? So what is the Cool Farm platform assurance statement? What is the claim that Cool Farm can make? Is that the Cool Farm platform is capable of generating product carbon footprints in accordance to the reporting criteria. This work was done to a limited level of assurance. And the reason for this is because limited means that the assurance is not a verification. As we talked earlier, model assurance is a mixed engagement. So it includes some aspects of validation and some aspects of verification. While all the verification aspects have been done to a reasonable level of assurance, because the model use is reliant on your data as well, which is not present in the tool at the moment, this is why it has to be described as limited level of assurance. So verification, reasonable level of assurance, but validation, limited level of assurance. And when you combine the two, we have to report it as limited level of assurance. So if we move on to the next slide. So what was the Cool Farm platform assurance decision? So based on the work we undertook, we didn't find, and the evidence provided, nothing had come to our attention that lead us to believe that the model has not been properly prepared in accordance with the reporting criteria. So the assurance opinion is unmodified, and what an unmodified opinion means that there are no major nonconformities that were left unresolved during the course of the assurance, and any minor nonconformities discovered did not substantially alter the veracity of the claim. And this is important to note, and keep in mind that the reason why we phrase it like this is because of the limited level of assurance, and this is standard wording. And I think that is it for me. Thank you for your attention, everyone.
Thanks, Paschalina. Okay, so next slide, please, and I'll talk about what the assurance means for our users and members. So as Paschalina mentioned, it's independent assurance, which the CFP gives the ability to calculate product carbon footprints. And it doesn't constitute a verified product carbon footprint. A verified PCF would need further validation. So next slide, please. So the assurance confirmed that CFP produces credible product level GHG results, that we have appropriate controls, documentation, and governance. And it's aligned with those 3 key standards that you've probably recognized: GHG protocols, product standard, PAS 2050, ISO 14067, and then Carbon Trust have some requirements for assurance as well that we met. Next slide, please. So what did the assurance actually do? What did it review? So firstly, it reviewed our technical methodology. Our methodology is completely transparent. You can see a technical description on our tool, and it describes equations, sources, assumptions, things like this. Also was reviewed as how we actually implement that methodology. So what does, some examples of the code, and what the kind of structure would look like, and the README behind, how we control merge requests and things like this. 3 was the emission factor sources and data quality. So, what year is the referencing from? What's the scope? Are we including well to tank, for example? And then the data quality. So if you know the GHG protocol product standard, you'll know the different data quality standards like temporal representativeness, technological representative, that kind of thing. So for all of our models, we did a data quality score. Also then looks at our processes and policies. So how do we decide when we need to update a method, and then what are the quality checks that it has to go through? So for example, a method gets discussed in the Science Advisory Council, and then there's whoever designed the kind of method artifacts, separate modeler reviews all artifacts, and there's kind of a review process, peer review process there. We also shared some representative assessments with Carbon Trust to kind of demonstrate the working of the models across different commodities. And then the 6th is, how do we ensure scientific governance and oversight? So that's mostly around the Science Advisory Council, and kind of, checks and balances that the actual processes have been followed properly. Next slide, yeah. So why does this matter? Why did we've been aiming for assurance for a couple of years and working hard towards achieving it, and why should we do it? So, there's an element of it supports credible reporting. So that means our members and their customers, investors, regulators know that they're getting reliable numbers. It clarifies where results can be used, so avoids misclaiming, overclaiming. And then it's really that independent scrutiny, because our methodology is completely transparent. We do get scrutiny. People, we'll have academics, we'll have members that go through the technical documentation and ask, why did we assume one thing? Why are we doing this? And we answer that. But having this kind of third party independent where it's a full review of our methodology, not just kind of piecemeal where certain methods are being used. It's been a really excellent process to ensure that our methodology is robust, and that it will remain robust over time, that we have good processes in place, and as the data and science evolves, we will stay up to date with that. Next slide, please. So what does this mean for members? It's mostly around how CFP results can be used and where appropriate care is needed, providing that confidence. So I'll give some examples for what that actually means in practice in the next slide, please. So one example is in product accounting. So as I mentioned, this can be used for product level reporting. But if you are doing a PCF, a verified PCF, you do need further verification. But it strengthens the confidence and credibility in the use. And as Paschalina mentioned, it will make the verification easier because some parts of the verification are already done. Next slide. So a second example is in reporting. So CFP can support Scope 3 emission reporting. It doesn't constitute an SBTI validation in and of itself. The SBTI have their own verification criteria that users would need to follow, but it helps with that emission reduction tracking. The second one is around LSRS. At the time that we went for assurance, LSRS was not yet published, so we could not assure to LSRS. It's not that we don't want to, that's the next thing in plan, and Paschalina and I have already been talking about timelines and things like that, what it could look like. And that would be the next thing to do, but this does give us a strong foundation where we don't have to re-verify certain things that LSRS looks for. It's kind of additional requirements that it's looking for. Next slide. And then the third example is from carbon projects. So it can be used to inform and screen insetting opportunities, but insetting often have, project-specific requirements. There's carbon credit eligibility, baseline, leakage, things like this, where this would be outside of CFP scope. And equally for carbon projects where they're, carbon credits and the results can be used, but they'll be, the rules are dependent on the relevant scheme. So it'll depend what carbon project or what certification criteria you're using, but CFP can support those emission accounting. Next slide, please. So I think you've heard enough from me. It'd be really nice for Nami to explain what this means for Nestle, please, and then we'll hear from Anvita from Danone. Thank you both.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good morning. Thank you, Megan, for giving us the opportunity to talk about what this assurance means for Nestle. Basically, I think it echoes what you have been mentioning before already, what Carbon Trust is already telling or what you are saying. For Nestle, having the assurance is key because this is part of our internal flow or workflow when we are reporting our results on an annual basis. We have been asked about what tools do you use to quantify emissions for key commodities, and we mentioning that we use Coal Farm platform or Coal Farm tool until now. is already recognized. But if we even mention now that the Cool Farm has this assurance on top of it, it strengthens the results that we are communicating and reporting externally. For us, the important bit is that the science behind these calculations is robust and it's updated. We know that as part of the process for the assurance that you already underwent this past year, a number of topics were highlighted, and we are already benefiting from the improvements that you did to the tool based on that initial assurance request. So now that you are working now for the LSRS assurance, we're even more confident that the tool is strong and robust, as I was saying. And our internal stakeholders are even going to be more satisfied that the data that we are using is representative. It's using the latest methodologies accepted for these commodities. And this data-driven and assured now methodology behind it helps us guide programs such as sustainability by design, where we are reformulating products or taking decisions on sourcing. So our colleagues in procurement, in R&D, in operations, all of them can be informed and use data that is not coming out of the blue. It has really strong foundation. So for us, it really gives us confidence, even more confidence in the tool. And if the tool goes well, we are also benefiting from that. So well done.
Thanks, Nami. And Vita, do you want to?
Thanks, Megan. Yeah, I think Nami, everything you covered also applies to us. So to give context, well, at Danone, we really use Cool Farm throughout the process. So we start from project estimation. So all the farm projects that we decide to implement, we use Cool Farm to estimate what are the reductions we can get from these specific interventions. Then we also use it, of course, for our annual accounting. And in the end, we also use it for progress tracking. So it's really end-to-end. And it's not just used for external carbon reporting, but also internal KPIs and sharing information with the farmers and whether the project has been efficient or not. So it's really great news, and really congratulations to the whole Cool Farm team for making this happen. And it's really critical for us to have that credibility that whatever we are working with is science-backed, robust, and also conservative, because as a global company, we have to make sure whatever we are putting out there is within the realm of scientific boundaries, and we're not overestimating anything or overclaiming anything. Rather, always we err on the side of caution. So having this assurance from Carbon Trust really gives us that confidence to go to our external stakeholders and say that, yes, we are using a tool which is assured and has the backing of third-party verified, and is completely aligned with science, and is also aligned with the different accounting standards we need to follow. And yeah, and that's another thing, that the accounting standards are constantly evolving, and having this whole process in place gives us the confidence that we're not lagging behind, and we're up to speed with the evolving science in the agri sector. And yeah, I think lastly, with being a global company, we have supply chains everywhere. It's from Europe to Latin America, US, Asia, and having one tool which is again assured, having a consistent methodology aligned with the best international standards available right now is really critical to defend ourselves and say that yes, what we're using is 100% aligned and credible. So yeah, really well done to the team, and really happy about it.
Thanks, boss. Thank you very much. Andy, I've just got like one more slide, I think, to wrap up. Thank you. I think it's coming.
I'm just going to say that name to it. I can see it on my screen.
Okay, I'll just start talking and hopefully it will magically appear. So what's next? This assurance has to be repeated every 2 years. We have a check-in in 1 year, and then the full assurance is repeated every 2 years. And that's just for what we've already done. We do want to add on LSRS, as I mentioned, and we're waiting for the guidance to kind of finalize exactly what we want to do around our SOC model. So we have some plans to improve our tier 2 SOC model, adding sample integration, and what that means for LSRS. I want to wait for the guidance. Don't want to do reworking. So yeah, that's all in plan. And then the kind of key priority for us is to make sure that we're staying up to date with the latest emission factors as standards evolves. And things like, for example, CRCF in Europe. What does that mean for co-farm platform? Do we need to be tweaking things, etc.? So that's our GHG carbon plans. I think we can probably, the slide's still not coming up, Candy. I don't know what's happening. Do you want me to share my screen?
Yeah, if you could. I keep getting an error message that I need to like quit the meeting, which obviously I'm not going to do. So yeah,
the Mentimeter. We do.
I feel like this is the issue of working remotely from Mauritius. Is there's always technical glitches. But thank you, Megan.
Not at all.
Do you just want to flip back to your previous slide, just in case anyone wanted just to have a look at it or take a screenshot of it? Because I know you did a very good job articulating what was on the slide. But anyway, for anyone who wants to see, this is what Megan was talking about. But yes, then if you could just go to the next slide. It was just to wrap up, really, to say thank you to all the speakers and for NAMI and Vita as well for explaining what it means from our Cool Farm Alliance members' perspective as well. Before we do wrap up, I do just want to also just ask 2 more questions of the Mentimeter. As you know, I love them. So the first one, again, is hopefully you might need to move that. I think you can just accept and continue. Yeah. So now that you've heard from Paschalina and from Megan, do you now feel confident that you know the difference between assurance and verification? So again, how did it? Okay, I don't need to. But maybe actually, do you know what would be really helpful is if you just pop into the chat, because part of this was like helping educate and get the understanding between the two. So if you just want to put in the chat whether you now feel that you are confident, I think the options were just like yes, no, or you need a little bit more information. That would be super helpful. The other option, I'll just put a link in the chat, is you can actually go to Mentimeter, like a URL, and you can actually fill it in online. So give me 1 second. And the other question, if you wanted to answer in the chat again, is I guess what we would like to know, I'll just put the question here, is like, what are you confident using Cool Farm Platform 3.0 for now? So what we're looking for is whether it's reporting, decision making, both, neither, or like a bit more information. So I'll just put those options in the chat as well. This is kind of what you have to think about when the technology doesn't quite work, isn't it? But anyway, we can also ask these things in the follow-up email, that is also okay. And we have got probably just under 10 minutes. I have seen just one question come up in the chat, but if anyone does have any questions that they did want to ask, either Paschalina or Megan, please do feel free to unmute yourself. I'm going to stop recording at this point.